Welcome, everybody, to Survive Advanced Super Bowl Week on the Really True Sports Network. I'm your co-host, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I'd like to welcome in my co-host, a man who really doesn't know a whole lot about anything, but we still keep him around. Help me welcome to the show, 1981 national champion, Steve Risley.
Mike, I kick my family's ass in Jeopardy every single night. I got the final answer last night. The answer was Red Badge of Courage by Stephen Crane. My family was looking at it. They had no clue. It was a question of a novel, the 19th century novel about the trials and tribulations of the war. And I just brought it out. Red Badge of Courage, Stephen Crane.
Yeah, that's
Civil
easy.
War.
Anybody knows that.
They didn't know it. No, they didn't know it at all.
Well, they should.
Well, they didn't. Because they don't read.
Oh.
Because I studied the Civil War.
You're a very, very well-versed man on many subjects.
Well, it's nice of you to say that. It's not the most accurate thing you said in a long time.
Well, I mean, the one thing they'll tell you you're not very smart is I was obviously being sarcastic and you didn't even catch on.
I never know when you're sarcastic. No, you're so damn good at bullshitting your way through stuff.
I am
good.
I am a sarcasm world champion.
You are.
1998 through 2005, 7 straight years. So let's start the show off. We're going to talk a little Super Bowl news, little NFL news.
Aren't we going to introduce our non-guest?
Yes.
He didn't take our call today?
He didn't take our call today, and that was Sam Weiss. He was supposed to. I talked to him last night. He wasn't on. But since he had the heart transplant and everything, we're not going to give him too big of a trouble because that would be an asshole thing to do, Steve.
All right.
And we'll just...
You mean like coming to Indiana and coaching there for 1 year and then leaving?
Yeah, because I'm telling you this, when the administration of IU
go to the Bengals?
You
to go to the Bengals?
That. Yeah, to go to the Bengals, one of the best franchises in football at the time.
Oh, Mike, come on, Mike. You have dogged the Bengals more than I've ever dogged the Bengals.
Yeah, I never dogged the Bengals before Mike Brown took over in 1991, and you just have to be an idiot to claim that they were the same then as they are now.
Well, Mike, hasn't the Brown family owned the Bengals since they became an expansion franchise?
Wait a second. So you don't think there's a difference between Paul Brown, maybe the greatest football coach, most innovative coach in NFL history, and Mike Brown, who is basically a dumbass?
Okay.
You know, in 1984, when Weiss was offered a job, if you listen to the interview that I did on the Legends show with him, he will explain to you that Paul Brown offered him the job 5 times before he took it. And finally, the administration at IU told him, you're crazy not to take it because it's an NFL team. So when you look at that, the sour grapes of you is pretty sad. Plus the fact they hired Bill Mallory after that. And Bill Mallory went on to be he was the most successful coach in Indiana football history.
John Pont may have been more successful, but that's close. I mean, I don't know what John Pont's overall record was.
How could that be close? John Pont took
I don't
Rose
know.
Bowl
I mean, John Pont
once.
took the Hoosiers to the Rose Bowl.
Yeah.
Only trip they've ever made there. So I don't know, Mike. I don't know.
Bill
I didn't follow IU football to that great of a deal. I know Bill Mallory was very respected. Coach Knight and Bill Mallory were great friends. They respected each other. Coach Mallory came and spoke to our basketball team, or the basketball teams, not when I was there, but after. But spoke to the team.
I love John Pont. I mean, actually,
yeah,
I didn't know he died. But he was the first head coach at Mount St. Joseph College, a Division III school in 1991. He started a program there. I almost went and played quarterback there for him, but I thought it was a bad idea.
And I don't know.
I didn't want to get hit anymore.
All I know is about Weiss is he came in and 1 year screwed the entire pooch on the IU uniforms, changed our logo, changed our school colors, came in, and then just left.
Okay, John Pont. This is what he was 31-51 at Indiana.
Okay, that's one great year basically.
Yeah. So 2-8, 1-8, 9-2 in the Rose Bowl, 6-4, 4-6, 1-9, 3-8, 5-6.
Did they win or lose the Rose Bowl?
They lost the Rose Bowl. I think it was 14-3 to USC, and they had a decent running back named O.J. Simpson on that team. He wasn't too bad.
Slashing his way through everything, huh?
Yeah, he was a real
O.J.
killer.
was still slashing his way through everything.
All right, let's get off the stupid
He was
comments.
a killer.
All right, so What we have here is everybody's asking
Mike, you know
us,
that I Mike, you
What?
know that I live 20 minutes from the Rose Bowl. We drive by it every day. It is a beautiful facility. It is stunning. You can't imagine how beautiful the Rose Bowl is, actually, to go see it. And they actually should play the collegiate national championship game in the Rose Bowl. It should be the road to the Roses. It should be played at the Rose Bowl every year. A static environment. Everybody leads to the Rose Bowl.
all right.
And that should be the national championship game.
Actually, it probably shouldn't. I think it should be played at Soldier Field or Lambeau Field in the snow.
See, I don't know. It's not. Football's an outdoor game. Weather is part of the process. I get that.
All right.
Did you see how yesterday I did refrain from Don saying the frozen tundra of Lambeau Field. I didn't say that. I wanted to so badly, but I didn't. But I was going to ask Sam Weiss about clock management against the 49ers.
No, you're not. You're going to be quiet. You're not going to say anything like that. That's just a mean thing to do. All right, because this is the thing, Steve. I have something.
Sam White, hello.
How you doing, Coach Weiss?
I'm all right. I'm sorry. I had down 12 o'clock Central Time.
That's
Are you
all
not in the
right.
Central Time Zone?
No, I'm on the Eastern Time Zone. I'm close to Cincinnati.
Okay.
Right on the Indiana-Ohio border. But I want to introduce our guest today was the head coach of the Cincinnati Bengals, 1988 Super Bowl 23. Also played in the NFL under George Allen, Paul Brown, and many other great coaches. Sam Weiss. How you doing, Coach?
I'm late. Other than that, I'm doing all right.
That's all right.
I'm sorry,
And the thing is this, Steve Risley, who you've never heard of, even though he played on a 1981 National Championship team at Indiana, was on here. And he was getting ready to say bad things about you for not being on the show, Coach.
Well, remember, I had this heart transplant, and I didn't get a lot of oxygen to the brain there for a while. So
Yeah.
I use that as my excuse for being forgetful.
Oh,
But,
that's all right.
But I'm sure I will remember him when I look him up on Google or whatever you do on the internet. I'm going
I
to.
don't know, Steve, do you have a Wikipedia page?
No, I do not have a Wikipedia. I'm not important enough. I mean, I was, the big thing about me is Isaiah Thomas and I combined for 26 points in the national championship game. Isaiah had 21 and I had 5. That's about it right there. It kind of ends right there.
I cannot tell you how proud I am of you, but that's about my record, by the way. And football, you extrapolate it a little bit.
And I'm out here in LA where it's only 9:23, so but it is 70 degrees and sunny out here. So I know what you guys are going through back in the deep South and in the East Coast. So or in the Midwest, get ready for some cold weather.
See, I'll tell you
We
what,
are going
Coach.
through it.
Risley lived in Indianapolis till about a year and a half ago. But ever since he moved to L.A., every conversation with him starts off, it's 75 degrees and sunny here. And it gets really old.
Gets boring.
South Carolina, when Nikki Haley started It's a Beautiful Day in South Carolina, all the people that voted for her were supposed to open their, or hello, how you doing, that way. And it got real boring, too. So you're not alone.
That's a good question, Coach. Is she going to run for president? What's going to happen with her now? We don't want to get a political conversation, but I like her.
I like her too. She's well liked in South Carolina. She's got a lot of, her track record here leaves a lot of good friends ready to help her if she decides to. But I haven't heard that. I don't know the details on that one. I'm out of the loop. So
yeah, me too. Safe place to be is out of the loop with politics these days.
Well, Steve's out of the loop on most things, Coach. But listen, it's Super Bowl week, so we're going to talk a little bit about the 1988 season. And the thing is, as a head coach with the Bengals, that was what, your fifth season? You started in 1984. The Bengals had a rough time in 87. 86 had just missed the playoffs. You want to tell us how you changed the culture going into 1988, or how Coach or Paul Brown helped change the culture with you?
I was reminded, this is starts out like a sad story, but it's not. I was reminded last week when I was at a celebration of life for Turk Schoner, a backup quarterback in that game to Boomer Esiason, who passed away last week, had a heart attack and passed away. And I don't know the exact number, but maybe 20 different players from that team showed up for that celebration of life to remember Turk. That's how tight the team was, in the latter half of my time there. And when the deal was over with, I am talking to probably 8 or 10 of the black athletes that were on that team. They were also at Turk's celebration of life. And they said, Sam, we're just sitting here talking right now about what you did between the 87 and the 88 season. And what I did was I wrote every player a letter, handwritten, and I said, I'm going to assign roommates to you guys. I'm going to room a black athlete with a white athlete, offensive with a defensive. And my goal is that you become a little bit closer. You learn your roommate's wife's name, the kid's name, what their aspirations are after football. You've got a much deeper knowledge about your teammates, and you will also learn about their friends who probably, if they're a white guy, they're going to have more white friends on the team, and so we'll spread that into the culture of the black athletes that's on that team. And they said, Sam, I don't think anything ever changed my approach and my enthusiasm for the season more than that did. So I'm giving that one a lot of credit, and that really fights right back to the credit goes to the players.
Yeah, and
Did I lose you?
Okay. Go ahead, Steve.
Okay.
So basically, Denzel Washington stole that whole concept from you and Remember the Titans.
Yeah,
because that's what he did in Remember the Titans. He did the same thing.
Well, I wrote the screenplay, so I don't know.
You wrote the screenplay. There you go.
There you go. Breaking news. Well, you did it under assumed name.
You did a hell of a job because it was a great movie, and that's cool to hear that you did that because that was definitely innovative in that time period to do something like that because, we never had anything like that with our guys at IU when we played. We just did what we wanted to do. There was never any mixing like that. There were kind of pushing people together to learn different things. Great concept.
Yeah, and when you look at this, and me and Steve always talk about this, we do an IU basketball show also, and leadership is a huge component to having a winning team. And when you looked at that 1988 team, you had leaders all over the place. You had guys like Boomer Esiason, Reggie Williams, David Fulcher. I mean, that was a team full of guys that were leaders.
That's right. And David was one of the Fulcher, the biggest safety in the history of the league at the time. If you remember, about 250-pound safety. But a great player and a big factor in everything that happened positively for that team. But David was at this celebration last week, and when it was over with, he said, you assigned me to Turk Schoner. Turk and I were roommates. Turk, a quarterback, and rooming with a defensive back. And he said, we talked about strategy. What are you guys looking for? It not only helped us between our relationships, but it helped us on the football field because we understood what that opponent across the line of scrimmage from us was trying to pre-snap read, and we could fake it a little bit and maybe get a little edge that way.
Yeah, and also another key to being a great head coach is having great assistants, and you did with that team. You had Jim McNally, who I think is one of the greatest offensive line coaches of all time. You had Dick LeBeau, one of the great defensive coordinators of all time. You want to talk a little bit about your coaching staff?
Well, they were all good, and they most of them were long-time associates of the Bengals one way or another. Jim McNally, for example, is probably the guru, or was considered at that time the guru of offensive line coaches. He actually had a clinic for all the NFL and college that wanted to come in Wilkesboro, Pennsylvania. And every year they had the same clinic, and different coaches would get up and talk about what they were doing and share it. But they all came really to hear Jim because he always had a little bit of insight and a little more detail to what he did. He was a very detail-oriented coach. Jim, you mentioned Dick LeBeau. Dick, I think, is he still coaching? I think he did this year. I don't know if he's going to next year or not. But Dick was, a great player for the Detroit Lions, a defensive back, and coached winning teams and high-ranking defenses all of his career. But the players admired him so much because they knew he'd been right where they had been. And not only that, he knew what he was talking about. And I had the privilege of being able to stand around and overhear a lot of that conversation and of course, direct a little bit of it to what I knew we were going to see that particular Sunday. So we had it going. It was a good group. We probably should have won more games. If we had a better head coach, we would have done that.
So you start off the year 6-0, though, which I think had to surprise everybody after the year you had before. You had a guy by the name of Ickey Woods, who was a second-round draft pick out of UNLV, that all of a sudden shows up. I think week 4 was his first touchdown against Cleveland, and his breakout game, I think, was against the New York Jets. You already had guys like Stanley Wilson and James Brooks. You want to talk a little bit about your backfield there and what Ickey brought to that team that maybe it was missing before?
Well, Ickey brought a bigger back, for one thing. He was a big, strong back, and not only was he big, but he was all muscle. And he had the quick feet that went with a smaller back. But so he had a great combination of things there. And then you had the different style of James Brooks from Auburn, who was a bend back runner, and we would line him up running zone blocking. There's Jim McNally that wanted to do it that way. And we would line them up about a half a yard deeper than normal, and they'd come straight downhill, and they'd either bend back, hit the hole, or bounce outside. So they're pretty tough for a defense to stop all three, if you read it right. And then, of course, we also had Stanford Jennings from Furman, where I went to school, who ran back that kickoff in the Super Bowl for a touchdown. Might have been the MVP if we'd have won that ball game, been able to hold on at the end. But we had different style running backs, and here's one of the keys to our offense. We were running the no-huddle offense. Now, nobody else was doing this at that point. We were surprising a lot of people, especially in the NFC, that we didn't see every year. We might have been well-polished by the time we caught an NFC team on the West Coast, for example, or something. But we had running backs that were part wide receiver. James Brooks, you could line him up in the slot all day long, and he would have been a terrific wide receiver and a threat to the defense. Ickey had great hands. Stanford Jennings had tremendous hands and was one of those guys that could sit down in the zones. He was like Dwight Clark that I coached in San Francisco with Joe Montana. Those two guys were all on the same page, and as soon as Dwight felt there wasn't anybody around him, he just stopped. Joe would pop it to him. And Boomer Esiason learned that not only would the wide receivers do that, but now their running backs would do it as well. So we had a lot of things going for us. It's pretty hard to stop something when you've always got an alternative to whatever the defense does.
Yeah, and you talked about the no-huddle offense a little bit, and just to lead into that, was there any problem in the NFL, any complaints about your no-huddle during the regular season?
Like every minute, yeah, I guess so. Every league meeting. In fact, I remember I was got it saved on the itinerary at the league meetings about the third year maybe. Was travel plans, how soon you had to be in the city if you were the visiting team, ticket prices, how many comp tickets to be given out, Sam White's no-huddle offense, and right on down the line was on the itinerary. I'll tell you, the one of the meetings, and I won't mention the coach's name because I admire him too much today as I did before. We were in the league meetings. I'd had breakfast with this coach that morning, just the two of us. We happened to head down about the same time. We were friends, and so we sat down together and had breakfast. And in the session, when my name came up and the no huddle came up, finally after a few discussions from different people, this coach had enough, and he kind of popped his hand down on the table and kind of half stood up. I don't think he stood all the way up, but leaned over the table a little bit and said, "Sam, you know this is nothing but popcorn football, and it's not in the spirit of the game." And, man, he could have stabbed me in the heart with a spear, and I would have hurt less because I admire him so much, one of the icons of coaching in the history of the NFL, and he called it popcorn football. Well, it was a new trend that has developed, and most teams have some form of the no-huddle now in their offense. And if you don't, you know you're going to have to practice it because enough teams do that you're going to face it. So you've got to get your scout squad ready to do it. Might as well put it in yourself. But
Coach, you know, I don't get a Christmas card from this coach every year, so I'm more than happy to mention his name.
Don't say it. Don't say it. Don't name a name. Just don't say a word. See, Risley's a troublemaker on here, Coach. He's a troublemaker.
But I know what you're talking about. And like I said, I don't get a Christmas card from him, so I don't really care if he doesn't like me. But I'll leave it alone.
The thing that stands out to me, though, Coach, is this. We see stuff like Buddy Ryan's 46 defense, the Wildcat, and this is stuff that's fads that people figure out and they stop it. To this day, the no-huddle offense, you'll see teams run it and still, have great success with it.
Well, the no-huddle, I keep hearing people call it the hurry-up offense. The no-huddle was never designed as a hurry-up offense. It was designed to have the threat of a hurry-up. In other words, we're standing there at the line of scrimmage. Everybody else, for years, since the start of the NFL, they had that 20 seconds or so that the team would get up off a pile on first down and go back and stand and caucus for about 15 seconds in the huddle and then come out, so they had plenty of time to get a sub in and all those kind of things. All of a sudden, we get up off the pile and we're standing. We're not going anywhere. We're lined up in a legal formation. And Boomer and the quarterbacks had a real quick signaling system where I actually gave him the signal for the next play before they got completely unpiled. He was yelling the next play out, and the team could hear the urgency defensively, and so there was a threat of the hurry-up offense. But let me give you a little history of where that seed was planted. When I was coaching the 49ers, I was the director of the passing game. Bill Walsh was the head coach. He was the head coach, general manager, offensive coordinator, and Graham Poopah, and my great friend too, by the way. I loved Bill, and he and I got along so well. But anyway, we were at practice one day, and one of the players runs a go pattern. He comes back, and he's breathing heavy. And I said, "Hey, man, I thought you were some kind of, in-shape dude here. You're breathing like a racehorse." He said, "Coach, I'm breathing heavy because I just ran 60 yards as fast as I can run it on this particular play as a wide receiver." He said, "But if you give me another 4 or 5 seconds here, I'll be breathing through my nose again." What he meant by that was, if you'll give me another 4 or 5 seconds, I will have recovered from that 60-yard sprint to the point I don't have to breathe through my mouth, which is the first signal of fatigue, by the way. Teams try to recognize when they're wearing the other guy out. But I registered with me. I kept it in my mind. I said, when I went to Indiana University, the team was down. They weren't winning a lot of ball games at that time. And I said, what if we were playing a defense that is fatigued, and we're not fatigued because we practice at a tempo that keeps us recovering faster than the defense does. Maybe we'd have a better chance to win. And so that was the start of the no-huddle, and then, of course, it just got polished. The players came up with ideas, other coaches came up with ideas, and we got it down to a science. And nobody liked it at first, but especially the defensive coaches. Very hard to get your defensive personnel in on third down, especially if you got James Brooks. Rodney Holman was our tight end. He was like a wide receiver playing tight end, so we didn't have to substitute to get 4 wide receivers. We already had them on the field.
Yeah, and
hey, Coach, a little sidebar here real quickly. Some news for you. You were talking about Indiana when you were coaching there, not winning a lot of football games. I got news for you. They're still not winning a lot of football games. So I don't hold that. We don't hold you accountable for that. I think it's just a process of Indiana University football. Sadly. All right, that's all I.
You know what? Oh, well, I know. I keep I check on them all the time, but I don't know why Indiana can't win. They've got a great campus. They've got a college atmosphere town. It's just really
they got more money than God.
Town. Yeah, and
they do. One of the wealthiest athletic departments in the world. So.
Well, that's right. But there's a lot of good football in high school football all around them. The problem, of course, is that they're competing against Notre Dame and Purdue, and Ohio State comes in to get good players, and Illinois comes in to get good players, and Iowa and so forth. So they're competing out of state as well. And winning begets winning. If they ever had a couple of winning seasons, boy, I think they'd be on a run for a long time.
Yeah.
Hey, here's a little known fact, Mike. I think I've told you this before. I was an all-state quarterback at Lawrence Central High School in Indianapolis.
He used to be an All-American coach. I looked it up. Now he's down to All-State.
It's not parade. I was a parade All-American, 100 best backs, whatever. But the very first coach that ever recruited me for any sport in college was Lee Corso to play football at Indiana University, long before Bob Knight ever approached me to play basketball there. And I really thought there was a chance I could go down and do both, but unfortunately Quinn Buckner screwed the pooch on that one. Because Knight said, "There's no way we're going through this crap again. You either play football or basketball. Make your call." And of course, basketball was my love. But Lee Corso was the very first coach that ever contacted me, called me, talked to me, or sent me a letter about playing collegiate athletics.
Well, there's a case in point right there. I think that's about all that needs to be done. Is you hit on a couple that the basketball coach lets it go. By the way, later, while I was there, we had a football player named Cam Cameron. Yeah,
great friend. And, good guy.
Terrific. He was good at both sports, and still, I think, coaching in the NFL right now. Still on the climb too. But Cam was allowed by Bobby Knight, and I don't remember if I went to Bobby and asked him or if he came to me, but we discussed it, and he said, Cam's the kind of guy I think can handle this, and we'll let it do, and I've never done it before, and maybe it's time I start doing it. And so you were a forerunner that set up the stage for Cam Cameron, and I hope Cam will someday.
Well, Buckner was the forerunner because Buckner did play both. Buckner played defensive back for IU and then was captain of the basketball 76 team. And then I came around and Knight said no way because he'd had all kinds of trouble with Buckner not being in shape at the beginning of the season and nagging injuries and things. So he said absolutely no way. And then it kind of all died down. And then Cam came out and I got to meet Cam and knew Cam not very well. We follow each other on Twitter. And he is a great human being, a great representative of Indiana University. But he got that chance again, and Knight had mellowed a little bit, or you had some kind of positive effect on him. That I don't think he and Corso ever got along that well anyway, so it didn't matter.
Well,
and Knight didn't really ever like me either, so it didn't matter. So he was gonna punish me any chance he could. But this show is not about me.
I brought it up.
Time.
Yeah, but as always, Steve, this show always ends up about you. Let's see. So let's go to 1988.
You guys just don't have any fun at all this time.
No, we don't. But I was going to bring up the fact that Corso recruited Steve, then Corso got fired and you got the job. So Steve could have been one of the reasons you got the job.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
But we get to 1988, the playoffs against Seattle. Joe Nash is all I remember from that game. He got hurt on every third down play. And then because of that, for some reason, the no-huddle offense was penalized instead of Seattle.
Yeah, and we had actually kind of, for several weeks before that, towards the end of the season, and more teams were doing that, not to the extent that Joe Nash and Seattle did. That was the first playoff game, by the way, of the going towards the Super Bowl after the '88 season. But on, I guess it was NBC. Anyway, the network that was carrying it actually had a sideline shot of the coach that would signal Joe to go down as if he were hurt. He was coming out on third down anyway. He wasn't a pass rusher. He was, a run stopper. And so they would have the close-up of the coach, and he would fire with his finger like he was shooting a pistol. And as soon as he did, Joe would grab his knee and fall to the ground. And they had that on the camera too. I mean, I don't think it was split screen, but anyway, they got to it and they had a replay of what happened after the coach shot him. And I even went over to the official. I said, "Hey, listen, he's not hurt." He comes back in on the very next down. He says, the official said, "Hey, I'm not a doctor. I couldn't get it." And my comment back to him was, "Well, if you'll just pay attention here, you can get your MD today, because this is a good example of when a guy is injured and when he is actually hurt." But which are two different things. But anyway, that was the start of it, and then we got it again on the championship game against the Buffalo Bills, a team we'd beaten in preseason and the regular season that year. They were good, we were good, and it's hard to beat a good team 3 times, I will tell you, just because of the law of averages, if nothing else. But the night before that game, the league informed the television crew, which was Dick Enberg and Merlin Olsen, that the commissioner had gotten a phone call from Marv Levy, and that Marv had said he was going to fake injuries like Seattle did, but he was going to do it on every down. And the commissioner had made the decision that too high profile a game, the AFC Championship, the winner going to the Super Bowl. And so they decided that they would penalize the Bengals for every time they did not go back into the huddle. Actually, their words were they penalized Sam for every time the Bengals didn't go back in the huddle. And they told that to the crew the night before. One of the people in that room calls me, a friend of mine that I'd played ball with as a player. So sit down, told me what they had said. I was ready the next day in the little office off from the locker room of the stadium. Mike Brown was in there. He had apparently been notified. And here comes the official and the league official saying, you can't run the no huddle. We've decided that we're going to penalize you. It's unsportsmanlike conduct every time you do it, even though we've been doing it for 5 years. We've done it all year long. We were the number 1 offense in football. And we practice it all week. So I said, we're going to run it. And you go get Pete on the phone, tell him we're going to run it. And I sure hope we don't lose the game because of those penalties, because that's all we're going to talk about in the post game.
Did they give you parameters as to how long you had to stay in the huddle? I mean, they say you got to spend at least 5 seconds in the huddle, or you had to huddle up and break and go, or did they give you any kind of guidelines or parameters? That's absolutely ridiculous.
You there, Sam? Oh, I think we might have lost him. Coach.
Did I ask too hard of a question?
No. I think his phone just dropped.
No.
We're
You try and get him back?
Yeah.
Great conversation.
Hello?
Hello. Well, your phone must have dropped on you.
How long was I talking to myself?
No, we heard. No, the only thing you missed, Coach, was my absolutely incredible, intelligent question.
Yes, it was incredible.
That's the only thing you missed. It was an incredibly intelligent question too, but now I can't remember it. No, my question was based on what
all the time.
Yeah, yeah. Well, as Coach Knight would always call them, that's an NFW question, Risley. Does anybody have an intelligent question to ask here? Did they give you, going back to the no huddle, and they took it away from you in the AFC Championship game? Did they give you parameters as to how long you had to stand in the huddle before you could break and go to the line of scrimmage?
No, that was going to be a judgment, I guess. Judgment call. They didn't even go into that. That was just pretty, black and white. You can't. Every time you don't go in the huddle, we're going to penalize you. And then, by the way, they never. You still there?
Yeah, we're still.
Okay, all right. I keep hearing it, but they never mentioned that we will throw a flag. And that was interesting to me, that they said we will just penalize you. We'll just mark it off. And I said, well, how in the world what are the fans going to be thinking every time you mark it? And there wasn't a flag thrown. I said, well, that's the procedure. And so I think that one would have really caused some issues down the road. But at any rate, they did not. The runner went out and supposedly got a hold of Pete Rozelle. I mean, the runner came back within 10 or 12 seconds. He obviously didn't call Commissioner. Commissioner probably told him, if Sam gives you any pushback, just forget it. I'll deal with Marv Levy after the game. And we ran the no huddle. There were no faking of injuries. It was kind of a sloppy game. There were several fumbles and interceptions in the game, but we won it again. I think it was 21-10, something like that, and we went to Super Bowl 23.
Now, the Super Bowl, I don't really remember the no huddle being run. Was that something that was told you couldn't do, or did you choose not to in that game?
No, well, we were actually in the no huddle mode, but it didn't mean that we would necessarily, hurry the snap or do anything like that. We were, when the players got up, Boomer had the option, if he chose to, kind of put his fingers together, both hands together like that, and to huddle up for some reason. And we did that probably more than we normally would have. But there was no strategy involved there. That was just the way it fell. Sometimes if you remember the night before, we had lost Stanley Wilson to a great running back and a good guy. I mean, a really good guy, but the drug owned him and couldn't quite get rid of it in time. But he had overdone. That was like 3 strikes and you're out. So that was his 3rd strike, and he didn't play in the ball game. And then Tim Crumry was injured, heart of our defense in the first series. I think it was early in the first quarter anyway. And so there may have been some thinking by the players more than the coaches. I know I didn't say anything, and I don't think any of the coaches really made a point of it, but let's slow this game down a little bit. We lost a couple of key players. We may need, we may run out of gas here if we're not careful. But we had the only way we ran, only offense we knew was you get up, you line up, and listen, the quarterback, all you do with the no huddle basically is you give away the privacy of the huddle. You let the defense listen in, and you're using code words that they don't understand, and they start to figure a few things out. You've got some phony words that throw them off the scent.
All right, now, the other thing I remember is this. You talked about Tim Crumry, who was the heart and soul of that defense, but you guys played a great defensive game, and David Grant came in and I think really filled in admirably for Tim Crumry in that game.
Well, he played as well as Tim, honestly. I mean, as a backup player who doesn't get as many snaps in practice and all those kind of things, he came in there and played, gave us the same results that Tim would have. Tim was a sideline-to-sideline player, and David Grant came in there and did the same thing. I mean, I think he was just motivated to, this is my shot, my chance, and I'm going to play as well as the best in the league, and that was at the time Tim Crumry.
Yeah, and you talked earlier about how close you were with Coach Walsh. Did that make the Super Bowl more difficult? Because you're playing, one of your best friends in the biggest game of your life.
Well, if I could have waved a magic wand, I wouldn't have played against one of my best friends. I will tell you, to be perfectly honest, but obviously I knew this all along. We came down to it. In the playoffs, when they were winning, we were winning. There was a chance we were going to play each other. So I think we were both ready for it. But both of us had such regard. We weren't that far apart in age, for one thing. And when I was a player, I had already played a year of minor league ball. I'd gone back and got my first year of my MBA degree done. So I was, killed a couple of years after college. So, and Bill was just a young coach in Cincinnati when we first met. So we just got along like brothers. We really did. We were on the same wavelength, and the chemistry was great. So after the game, it showed up even more so because we went over and the microphones picked up more than once, us saying, hey, I love you, man. He was saying it, I was saying it, and we meant it too. It was a hard one for us to lose, but I was happy that Bill went out on a winning note because he was certainly a winner for sure.
Steve,
I'm just listening.
Okay.
This is your show. This is about the time when I was becoming a Colts fan. I listened to all the names. Church Shonner, I didn't realize he had passed away, and I remember all those names. And I was a diehard Bengals fan until the Colts came to Indianapolis.
Here,
I have a question.
I have a question. And that would be this: when you watched Boomer, that
But I'm
was
still
the year he
rooting for
won
I'm rooting for the Bengals that year. I mean,
Nobody wants to hear it, Steve. You're a Colts fan. Be quiet. But when, when you watched Boomer that season, it seemed to me the last quarter of the season in the playoffs, the way you guys played changed, and it looked like the velocity he threw the ball with changed. Was there anything wrong with his shoulder the last portion of that year?
No, other than chronic fatigue, which affects every player, every basketball player. Towards the end of the season, you need, those legs can get to be rubber if you're not too careful and rest them, give them enough rest between games towards the end. And I think that, that was just, if that was true, sometimes it looks like it is, and it's Boomer taking a little something off the ball to ensure the catch. But no, Boomer's a big, strong guy now. He's 6'6", and 240 pounds at that time, 235, 40 pounds. Big, strong guy, and big hands. He grip that ball like a softball almost, and a true commander on the field. I mean, he was the ultimate field general, and he took charge. The players understood who was in charge, and they followed orders right down the line. And it almost had to be that way for a new idea like the no huddle to succeed right away. And it did pretty much succeed even in the first year of it.
Yeah. And we talked about the NFL trying to change the rules on you guys mid-game. We just saw the NFL referees basically decide kind of who was going to the Super Bowl. What do you think should be done about the NFL officiating and when calls like that occur in an NFC Championship game?
When it's a single elimination, when it gets to that point, I'm not sure you should do it all the way through the season because calls seem to even out. In basketball, sometimes they call a charge when it wasn't a charge, but they seem to even out over the course of the game. In the course of the season, same thing. And football would fall into that category. But when it's a single elimination, this one game, if you don't win it, you're out. You're done. I think the judgment calls, which are not reviewable now, the judgment calls should be allowed to be reviewed. And if it takes bringing in a Supreme Court justice or whatever it is, a referee that pretty much supersedes in terms of the instant replay, a call, bring him in and hire it. You have an extra guy up there in that booth whose opinion matters. Right now, they have opinions up there that go over the broadcast, and all of America hears it, but it doesn't matter. It's what that guy saw on the sideline. And let's face it, there's some peer pressure down there. If I'm one official and the other guy makes a call that you think's incorrect, you're not going to go over there and embarrass him. You're not going to go over there and try to, change his call unless you're absolutely sure. And even then, you're hesitant to do it because you're a team. Those teams stay together, all during the year. So anyway, that would be a suggestion I would make, like I did for 5 or 6 years with the no huddle and get nothing out of it.
Yeah.
I also suggested they move the umpire, get that umpire out from behind the line of scrimmage on defense. For every year I was a coach in the league meetings, I brought it up. Every year the officials said, we'll check it out and practice it in preseason next year. And then the next meeting, they didn't do it. And they said, oh, yeah, we were supposed to do that. We'll do it next year then. It went on year after year. They were adamant they weren't going to move because the idea came from the wrong person. That was the main reason. But now they've got that official out. Here's how absurd it got. I kept bringing up that, look, he's right in the way of crossing patterns. The wide receivers use him to pick off of the cover guy off. And if it's a run up the middle, he gets tangled up in the middle. He either stops the play or he gets hurt. And after a couple of 3 years of that, they decided that they would put a helmet in preseason now and see how it worked. Put a helmet on him. And I said, well, I thought you guys told me that they didn't get hurt. Why would they need a helmet? And it got real quiet in the room. So that's part of battling it out, and they still do it today, even without my help. So,
all right, Steve, I know you got a question here because Steve doesn't like instant replay.
I've got mixed emotions on it. I mean, to me, adversity is part of this game in a huge way, and it was a terrible call. There's no doubt, but the human factor is what keeps the game enjoyable. And I think if you start replaying everything and start questioning every referee's judgment, you're going to take an already long 3-hour game and turn it into a 5-hour game because you're going to have all these opportunities to question every judgment call. It was a terrible call, and most likely it cost, but the Saints a game. But they had a chance to recoup. They had other, that was not their last play. And they had a difference. They didn't change their strategy quick enough. They didn't mend it. I just think adversity is a huge part of sports, and bad calls are a huge part of sports. Referees are equipment, much like the football, like 10-yard markers, like cleats, like everything else that goes with it, like goalposts. They're part of the equipment, and nothing ever performs at 100% all the time. Your cleats fall out, you slip, you don't have cleats deep enough, ball gets deflated in cold weather. There's all kinds of things. And I just think the more you screw with the purity of the game and the way the game was originally designed, the more you kind of make it a little bit more like championship wrestling and start trying to fix every little problem with the game. Solving problems is a big part of professional football and college football and football in general, any sport. And I would rather just, eat it, this terrible call, and let it go. And I have no animosity toward the Saints, or I didn't care. I'm in L.A., but I'm not a Rams fan at all. I'm actually going to be rooting for the Patriots this year. And I live in L.A. Because I want to see Brady and Belichick just keep it rolling. Now they're just kind of iconic. Now I just want to, keep going, guys. Make this thing untouchable. But I just don't think that they should get into this reviewing judgment calls. That's just my opinion.
Well, I'm agreeing with you for most of that. Here's if we could come to a compromise, unlike Congress, because Nancy Pelosi. Well, that's another thing. But
yeah, don't worry. Yeah. I'm a pure Republican out here in California. I'm an island. I'm an island in an ocean. Trust me.
Okay, but here would be a compromise from what you just said. I agree with what you just said, but if a mistake is made, clearly that needed to be at least reviewed to make sure that the team that played the best and performed the best won the game. Time is a factor. If there is less than 5 minutes to go in the game, or less than 7 minutes, maybe you want to take the last half of the fourth quarter, that you review at that point, but not until that point, because you don't have time to recover many times. You've got 7 minutes to go in the ball game. You may not get the ball back at all, and if you do, you may get it in a 2-minute situation. Hurry up. So a review there doesn't bother me, because you just want to get it right. You don't want to have all of this discussion that's going on now about that one play going into the game. And listen, it cost a lot of players a lot of money. No question about that.
Yeah, it was like $250,000. Yeah.
Well, not only the money that they make, but the contract they're going to sign next.
Right.
If you got a Super Bowl under your belt, you become more valuable.
So, Coach, let me ask you this. Let me just ask you this, Coach. Who made the call? Was it a back judge, a line judge? Do we know who made the call? Was it a back judge?
Well, the official closest to the play did not make it.
Which probably would have been a back judge, I'm guessing. Right. So cannot the head referee come over and overrule the call and say, you know what? No, I'm going to overrule that. That was pass interference. And if another referee comes over and says, "Guy, I like you. We want to be a team here, but that's a blatant pass interference. We have to overrule this call right now." Do they not have the ability to do that?
Not right now. No. I mean, he's got the ability to
the head referee cannot overrule. I mean, I've seen many times where they've thrown a flag and they've picked up the flag and said, when they get in a huddle and say, after consultation, there's no flag. They could not have all gotten together and said, nah, there's 5 of 6 of us see this as pass interference. We need to change this call right now.
Right. But only if it's a judgment call, you can't do it. Now, if it's, did the clock run? Yeah. Did he step out of bounds? Are you sure he was in bounds?
Sure. Black and white call. I get that. But that's reviewable.
And that's reviewable. But when you see the officials go to the sideline, huddle up like that, they're huddling and discussing a reviewable issue. If it's strictly a judgment call, was it interference? Is a classic one. Interference goes on so much. When do you call it? When do you not? And so that one would never be one that would be reviewed unless it were like the one that occurred in the Rams and the Saints. That it was clearly the ball
should have been reviewed, right?
Well, and the bad thing is you had the helmet-to-helmet contact, which the player got fined
right, yeah,
for,
two penalties,
even though it wasn't flagged.
Yeah.
So the NFL admitted its mistake. My biggest problem with it is the NFL, Roger Goodell, doesn't come out and say anything till a week after it happened. And the CFL reviews pass interference. You get 2 challenges, I think, as a CFL head coach during the game to challenge pass interference. It does not slow the game down more than a couple minutes at most.
Yeah.
And the thing is this, I don't know why it takes 5 minutes to review a call. Yeah,
well, that's a good question right there. And, how do you teach it? They look at it so many times. That's the reason they do it. That's the reason it takes time. How about this? If you adopt a CFL rule, but you only get one appeal in the meat of the ball game, and you have another appeal added to each team gets an extra appeal in the last 7 minutes, the last 6 minutes, whatever they come up with, so that if something does happen late in the game with very little time to recover, at least you have an appeal, and everybody's going to review it and make sure to get it right. So there are a lot of things that can be done. I'm sure it'll be discussed in the league meetings. There's no way they could go to the league meetings and not discuss this in full. So
I think we'll see a review on something like that, Steve, by next year. And if you
I
remember,
agree.
1979, the Mike Renfro call had a lot to do with why they had, instant replay, which I think the first year they tried that was like 1986. And on top of that, I've seen a worse call than this cost the team, because if you remember the 77 AFC Championship game, Rob Lytle's hit like a yard and a half short of the goal line, fumbles the ball, the Raiders recover, a touchdown's called, and Denver goes to the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem is it changes the whole history of the game. And when you change the whole history of a game with a blatant missed call, I think it affects the integrity of the game.
Well said.
If you put a bottom line on it, what will make the game and keep the game fair or more fair? Then just don't tinker with anything that doesn't involve keeping the game a square deal for both teams. You wouldn't have that many things that you would have to discuss. But this one, I think you can come up with an answer, and everything we've kind of talked about here are all possibilities. There'll be objections to everything, so they'll have to hammer it out. But I don't think
Coach,
they want to live with this for very long.
Again, I say this, and I know this is a cheap cliche to say, but you basically could call holding on every offensive play by the offensive line on every down. Yeah. You literally could find one offensive lineman who is grabbing a jersey, tucking his arm around somebody's shoulder, holding on every single play if you wanted to find it. If you ever just sat and studied the game, just looked at the offensive line,
so
you could call it every play.
What's that got to do with pass interference?
I think you get into a situation where, again, where do you draw the line on what judgment calls you review, what judgment calls you don't review? Actually, in all fairness to the referee, in all fairness, in my opinion, and again, I'm not the football geniuses, either one of you two are, I get that, I'm a fan, but if you watch that thing in real time, it is pass interference, but it's not as ugly as it is in slow motion.
Yes, it is. To me, it is because the guy never turned his head around. He went in and he hit him immediately. When I watched that, I thought it was no doubt.
It happened so fast. It happened so fast that in real time, they have to make a snap call on that right there. It's not as easy as it is to sit there and watch it replayed 30 times in slow motion with the helmet coming to the helmet before the ball's even 10 yards or 5 yards from him, and then him getting knocked out and the ball coming right on target to him. In slow motion, it's like, oh my God, how can you possibly miss this? Real time, it's like it's a split second judgment call, and That's all I'm saying. So we start taking all that away. We put all that back into it now, and now you've just slowed the game down, but you've done the right thing, but you've all of a sudden now extended things. And like Mike said, why the hell they can't review a play in 30 seconds? I mean, all the angles you get while the referee's sitting there reviewing, we get 20 different angles from the 20 different cameras on there. We see it, and we made a call in 10 seconds. Oh, yeah,
and
that's
this is the
definitely
thing, though. I'll sit there and watch an extra 5 minutes to get the actual true winner.
Okay, well, that's fair. That's very fair. That's where it's going to go. I believe that's where it's going to go.
I'm going to take another view of it here as a former coach who found plenty of times to complain about a call during the course of ball games, as all coaches do, fighting for your team, basically. And when you go back and you look at the film, most of the time, the very high percentage of the time, I would even say, they were correct, and you saw it through different colored glasses than they did. Mm-hmm. So most of the time, they're right. That's why I think the only time that you really, to keep the game fair, is to have a reviewable judgment call reviewed late in the game when there's really no time to recover, especially if it's a fumble. Was it a fumble or not? Did he make the first down or not on 4th and 1? I mean, those crucial kind of calls. And then if you save one you have to save it. You don't have a choice. And you give them one more during the course of the ball game in case it's something that really looked like they just blew it. At least they have a chance to get it right, and they're not going to feel threatened all the way through.
Let me play devil's advocate. Sean Payton challenges one 5 minutes before, challenges a pass interference call. This play comes up. He's out of challenges. He doesn't have another pass interference call challenge. What do you do then? Sorry, you wasted your call earlier. That's it. I mean, you can't just have one.
Yeah, but this
you have
is the
to
thing.
Do all or nothing.
Wait a second, though, because then, that's the coach's choice to do that. So then you're making him say, do I worry about this call at 6 or 7 minutes, or do I worry to call it 2? But also, you could give them each one, and in the last 2 minutes of the half, just make it reviewable like they do, turnovers in the last 2 minutes.
And see, in my eyes, it just goes back to it's all speculative, and speculation and adversity are a big part of sports, and you deal with both of them while you're on the field, on the court, on the diamond,
but the word
on
you're
the
missing
rink,
here,
anywhere.
I think, is incompetency at times, and I don't see why you should have to deal with incompetency. That's how bad this call was, to me at least.
Yeah.
I mean,
and this is definitely.
If I'm a 50-year-old Saints fan, and I'm a Bengals fan. If you take a Super Bowl away from the Bengals, that's going to affect me for the rest of my life.
The really sad part.
I still think about Super Bowl 23 like I played in it a lot, Coach.
I relive a lot of it.
Man, if Billups just holds on to that ball in his stomach, the whole thing changes.
I mean, the really sad part about that call was the Rams defensive back lowered his head and immediately started walking away looking for the flag. He's like, that's pass interference. I mean,
he came out after the game.
He admitted to after the game was pass interference. It's like, So that's the unique exception that will change the rules, and I believe they will come up with some policy to review pass interference calls. And if it keeps that from happening, then so be it. But I just question how much it's going to alter the outcomes or affect the way games are played and how we strategize to play games. We just kind of keep manufacturing things to where they feel like they're manufactured and not just go out and gut it out and play hard and sweat, bleed, and win and take your adversity, take your great opportunities. What was a big adversity for New Orleans was a tremendous opportunity for the Rams. I mean, you got to look at it both ways. Right. That's all I'm saying.
All right, so
it was a great opportunity for the Rams.
We're at about 50 minutes. So go ahead, Coach.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let me throw one more thought out right here. Life's not fair either. And I think that the fans sitting in those stands, probably are getting very confused about what the rules are and what they aren't because they are changing so much.
Yeah.
I think keeping it simple is going to help the game from the standpoint of your supporters, your fans sitting up there, because sometimes those calls can't be explained very clearly to the fans who's up there screaming and hollering. He thought it was something else. So there's a lot of things involved. The league does the best they can. The officials, I'll tell you, they do a terrific job 95% of the time. And I don't think anybody could hit 100% anyways. You couldn't get another group in there to do it. Only assistance that might help them would be, to me, when, as I've said, when there's no recovery time. And I'd fight for that a little bit in the league meetings. But that's all I have
and maybe
to
it
say.
should be. Yeah.
Hey,
and Mike and I have talked about this a lot. The game athletically has just sped up so much since the merger and coming on. These athletes are so much faster, stronger, quicker, better. That it's
I don't think they're better. I really don't. I mean, I think this. I
faster,
think
stronger.
Technically, I think offensive linemen were much better 30 years ago. I think that the proliferation of, the spread offense in high school and college has really hurt offensive line play when they get to the NFL. I think they're bigger. I think they're stronger, and they might be faster. But I think technically, Coach, players in the NFL 30 years ago might have been a little bit better, at least offensive line-wise.
Well, 30 years ago, honestly, you had big offensive linemen try to get bigger because they had a big defensive end coming up the field. Now they get those quick they're 275 instead of 305, and they're quicker. So those offensive linemen are actually shedding some weight so they can be a little quicker to match up on that outside rush. But the game evolves and the game adjusts, and that's part of, quote, the game. That's it.
And they'll adjust it. They'll adjust it this offseason.
All right, Coach, who do you like in the Super Bowl?
I'm looking for a 28-24 thriller.
You're not going to give us a winner, are you, Coach?
Oh, yeah, the winner will be 28. I mean, it almost always happens.
All right, Coach, you've been on there almost an hour, and I know Don Horn was on for over an hour the other day, and then he called me afterwards, and he said, that Risley guy never shuts up. So we don't want to go too long.
I'm a sponge. I'm a sponge, Coach Weiss. I love listening to guys like you talk because I love the history of the game. I love the guys that have been there, done that, and there's no greater opportunity in life than to be able to spend time an hour with you talking and listening to what you had to say, and because you're an actor. I mean, you're a doer. You're not somebody who just speculates on the game. So, and like with Don Horn, I very much appreciate the opportunity to do that.
You guys are great. Just make sure you shake and make up after you go.
Oh
up
no,
here.
we do this all the time. It's no big deal. This is how our normal phone conversation goes when we talk to each other off air.
I'm not even sure our wives like each other. So.
Well, I'm pretty ticked off at both of you right now, so I don't want to talk about it.
Hey, Coach, real quick.
Kidding.
I don't know if you get text message or not, but did you get my text on Gary?
Oh, yeah, Gary Burley? Yeah. I got it.
Okay. Yeah, he said to give you a call anytime, and that was – I wanted to bring that up, too, real quick. Coach, of course, had a heart transplant. And I know you told me you're going to get to meet somebody that has something to do with that.
Yeah. I had the best day of my since the heart transplant came last week. Last Friday, I got a letter from the wife of the donor, and she told me a little bit about the donor, the person whose heart I have in my chest right this second, and who saved my life at the very last hour or two of when I was supposed to exit planet Earth. And she told me a little bit about him and a little bit about their family, and said she is now ready to meet me and listen to that heartbeat one more time. So that was a special day last week, and I can't wait to meet her.
Yeah, we can't wait to hear all about it. Hopefully you'll come back sometime. Hopefully Steve didn't scare you off.
That'd be great.
It's always on me. See, Coach, he always puts it on me.
Just make sure. Yeah.
I'm appreciative. Coach Knight taught us to always respect people that have been there and done that, and listen to people that have done things. You can always learn, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you. And I wish you well.
Call me again.
All right. Hey, thanks a lot, Coach.
I told you what we do down here.
Huh?
Okay.
Yeah, you can take us
All
on an
right, no,
airplane
I-
ride sometime, right?
Well, I'll be happy to.
There you go.
I'm a private pilot, and I got my license back, and I got my medical back, and that was my goal after this heart transplant. First one in, according to the FAA guy that I talked to, first one in 10 years to be a heart transplant recipient and get his license renewed. But I'm a multi-engine, pressurized, instrument-rated pilot, so I love to fly.
How close are you to Hilton Head?
Not very close when I drive, but not far away when I fly. So
we're
in the we're near the mountains, near North Carolina.
Okay, so you're up north. You're up north,
Carolina.
yeah. Okay, yeah. We go to Hilton Head 2 or 3 times a year. We love that place. It's one of the neatest places in the world to go. You don't want to go there in July. Not a good time to go in July, but.
Okay. Well, Kenny Anderson will be happy to put you up. He lives in Hilton Head now.
Oh, does he really? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
I'm going to tell him you're going to call.
Okay, I've got Kitty's phone number, so we're gonna call as soon as we get off here and see if Steve can say it's Kitty's house.
No, I'm actually gonna have Kenny take me to Darlington. I'd rather if I say have Kenny do anything, let him take me over to Darlington. Let's go watch a NASCAR race.
Hey, he's got connections. He can do it. He can do it.
There you go.
Let me tell you, he's a great guy. Now, talk about one of special human being that's come through this league. He's one of them.
Yeah.
All right, guys. I appreciate it.
Hey, thanks a lot, Coach.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, guys.
Have a blessed life.
Yep, thank you. Coming up next, guys, we have Bobby Sheridan from the Sheridan Report. We will be back right after this.
Hey, sports fans. Chris and Graham here from the Grueling Truth Network.
Baseball's boring. It's too slow. Where's the fun in it? If you think that, then why the hell aren't you listening to Out of Left Field with us on thegruelingtruth.net?
On our show, we make baseball way more than just a bunch of numbers. You laugh with us, probably yell at us, and hopefully learn a thing or two from us.
Ever wonder what it's like to be a major league umpire, or why they made the call they did? Lucky for you, we have our own umpire on the show, even have big league umpires stopping by from time to time, and even the occasional big leaguer or two.
And all of that's just the first 10 minutes. Come on by and join the fun. Listen to Out of Left Field with Grant and me every week on thegruelingtruth.net, and give us a follow on Twitter and Facebook.
Just search Out of Left Field with Chris and Graham and like our page on Facebook, or use our Twitter handle @OOLeftField. It's that simple. See you all this week when we put the ball in play on Out of Left Field.
All right, guys, welcome back to Survive in Advance. I am Mike Goodpaster with Steve Risley, and I want to welcome Bobby Sheridan from the Sheridan Report to the show. How you doing, Bobby?
Mike, how are you and Steve doing this morning?
Oh, we're doing great. We just talked to Sam Weiss. Once again, we want to thank Coach Weiss for coming on. So how did you do last night, Bobby?
Well, the report was 3-0. We had our second straight sweep of the card, and we're real happy about that. And I was most happy that I was able to give all 3 plays online, and on air. And that made me feel really good.
All right. So, Bobby, what do you got tonight?
Well, I wanted to go over the Super Bowl line quickly. We don't need to talk too much about it because there hasn't been any change. New England is 2.5 and 56.5, and it's just a matter of when that money's going to come in and when the books are going to make their move. But we were talking last week about how much money was to be bet on the Super Bowl in whatever form, in all forms, office pools, legally and whatever. And it came out with an estimate this morning that I read. It was a survey result released by the American Gaming Association that they're estimating $6 billion, I can't believe it, to be wagered on the Super Bowl in one form or another. Just mind-boggling. I just wanted to throw that stat out there for you guys. And one thing I did, a stat I came up with about the Super Bowl, and I don't want to get into the game too much today, but you guys you maybe even said it, but I had not realized this, that in the Brady Belichick era, the 8 previous Super Bowls, there's been 3 total points scored against them in the first quarter. Are you aware of that, Mike?
Yes.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. When I read that, I just it was the Eagles last year, 3 points in Super Bowl 52. So they obviously have a plan on what they like to do.
By the way, I didn't really know that. Did it sound like I did though? The way I said yes.
Well, I mean, the thing is that I know that you're very knowledgeable about things, and so I just assumed, but I did not know
now
that.
Now you just gotta wonder if I'm knowledgeable about things or just acting like I am, huh?
He's acting.
Anyhow, yeah, that's a pretty amazing stat. And they like to control things, and they like that time to whittle away in the first quarter and keep the ball from you and play good defense early on. And I just wonder if the Rams are not going to, they're going to have an answer, and I believe they will. But I mean, that's just an amazing stat.
I'll tell you what, though, if I was them, I would quit talking. I would have never started talking.
You mean about this game?
About Tom Brady.
What do you mean?
I mean, the Robey guy saying that Brady looked old. I mean, I'm telling you, most of the time I take that for a grain of salt. People forget that right away. But there's some people, it's like you don't talk crap about Larry Bird before you play him. I think talking crap about Tom
right.
Brady is a really bad idea.
Right. Well, I had a guy. You talk about thoughts and things, and it made me think about the Rams maybe trying an approach here that isn't conventional, if that's what's going on. But I had a guy. I was emailed him last night, and I said, there's going to be a new star in Los Angeles after this Super Bowl, and his name is McVay. That guy at 33 years old, and what they're possibly, in my opinion, probably going to do on Sunday, that guy, wow. Pretty amazing start he's had there, and the accolades that he's gotten at 33 years old is pretty amazing. But anyhow, I saw that stat just before we went on air, and I had to ask you about that. First quarter scoring, amazing.
Yeah, and a lot of that's preparation. Nobody prepares better than Bill Belichick.
Yeah, no doubt.
So we'll see about Sam McVay after this weekend. Or Sean McVay,
Sam McVay,
whatever the hell his name is.
McVay.
I don't care. He's not Bill Belichick. We'll see what happens when he coaches against Bill Belichick. I still think the Rams should win the game, but I really like Bill Belichick. So it's hard to bet against him. He usually wins in these situations. Hell, he usually wins in most situations.
You brought it up. Didn't win last year.
Yeah, he didn't, but he's 5-3 in Super Bowls, and that's not too bad.
Sure isn't.
Especially since every game is within a touchdown. Is Steve here still, Steve?
Yeah, I'm listening.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm reading everybody who's following. I'm looking at everybody who's gotten under my profile on LinkedIn.com, which I haven't been on in 20 years.
A bunch of people in there looking for 6'10" power forward.
No, there's a bunch of media people wanting somebody to come and do radio for them.
Oh, you got to go jump on that.
Well,
I'm happy where I am.
Well, it's because of all the money.
The rumors out there, Risley.
Yeah.
I'm happy where I am.
There's no rumors about Risley out there, but go ahead. I'm trying to make him relevant.
Oh, Jesus, Goodpaster, I swear to God, you're such an idiot. Dealing with you on a day-in-day-out basis.
So, Bobby, but you're happy.
Yes, sir.
So, what's your big play for tonight?
Well, we have 4 plays on the board tonight.
Hey, wait, Bobby, wait. You called the Golden State. You called the Golden State Pacers game pretty well. Congratulations on that one.
Well, he was undefeated last night. We already went over that, Steve. Were you not paying attention at that point, or what?
No, I told you I was reading my LinkedIn profiles.
Well, quit reading your LinkedIn profile and pay attention to the show.
Well, how fun is it to list somebody just keep pounding everybody and be undefeated all the time? I mean, that gets kind of boring too. I mean, okay, he's a winner. If I had money to bet, I'd bet it and get my Ford F-150 pickup truck. So,
okay.
Hey, it's coming, Steve. It's coming.
Yeah, I've heard that before too.
Checks in the mail, right?
Oh.
I've never heard that one. Not from Goodpaster. I've not heard that from Goodpaster, that's for sure.
Heard what?
Checks in the mail.
Yeah, you have. I pay you through PayPal all the time. You just don't notice.
Oh, you just? Okay.
Well, guys, there's 4 plays tonight. They're all underdogs. And I thought I'd talk on air about one of them. It's a college game tonight. And in this game, I'm going to, tease the audience a little bit here. There's one team has a star player in this game, and one team does not. One team has a lot of confidence, and one team does not. One team has an identity, a true identity of how they go about trying to win a ball game, and one team does not. And one team has a top 5 victory on their resume, and one team does not. And one team sits in the top of the Big Ten standings, and one team sits towards the bottom of the Big Ten standings in this matchup. And we're talking about Wisconsin and Nebraska. And
Bobby.
Nebraska. Yes.
You sound like a freaking promo. You sound like a freaking promo for Young and the Restless.
I can see that.
You're teasing like crazy. Just get to the point.
Well, those are all good points that are part of my logic here. Sometimes logic wins, guys. Sometimes the things that you don't always have to uncover the craziest stats and the most obscure stats to come up with a winner. I mean, sometimes logic works. And Wisconsin, that team has done a lot of good things to get where they're at this point in the season. They're 6-3, and they have a 3-game winning streak, and they do own a victory over a top 5 team with Michigan. And Nebraska has just really fallen on hard times, coming off the worst loss of the year at home game against Ohio State. So, you look at that just on the surface, and to me, it's you're going to give me 3 points in that ball game. It was 2, and I expected it to go Wisconsin's way, the line, and now it's gone the other way. Nebraska's favored by 3. I don't understand it. I mean, Nebraska, I watched that Ohio State game on Saturday. I did see much of that game. They lost one of their best 3 players, a kid named Isaac Copeland, who started 53 games for them in the last 2 years, averaged 14 points. They lost him to a knee injury. He's out for the rest of the season. The 6-minute mark to go, the fans started leaving the arena. Very disappointing loss. This is all true. This isn't me just making this up. And so you got Wisconsin coming in there tonight, and I think there's a changing landscape. Nebraska, we talked about that yesterday. Their home court advantage, Bob Knight would be all over that for making that mistake. But the home court, if I was a media guy, the home court advantage is real. Nebraska had won their games at home by a nice margin and had a real good advantage. And that, to me, that's going out the window in this ball game tonight. And their defensive numbers have taken a dip. Their opponent field goal percentage, forcing turnovers, those kind of things. I think teams have figured out how to attack them. And if you watch the Ohio State game, Ohio State, which to me is not that good of a team this year, really exploited them. And so Wisconsin's going to be able to do much of the same. Steve, they have you probably know this, but for your fans I'm speaking, they have a 6'11" center that does it all. He had his second triple-double of his career on Saturday in their victory, and 13, 11, and 10. And it's the second one of his career, and only the third in the history of the program. So, they have an identity. They have a style of which they go about and do things. And I really liked them tonight. So top play, college, Wisconsin, +3 over Nebraska tonight. That's one of our 4 plays.
Wisconsin is one of those programs that doesn't necessarily graduate players early or players leave early. They stick around for the full 4 years there, and that's the identity of that basketball team. It's a throwback kind of. The guys all stick around, and they put a great program together and keep their guys together, and they're able to win by seniority and just by having been there and done that before, as much as just bringing raw talent in like a Duke does or something like that, or a Kentucky. So that's the identity of Wisconsin basketball, which is great. It's a rarity. You don't see that anymore in the sport. Yeah, I love it too.
I love it, and they are starting 2 seniors and 3 sophomores, and So, I mean, I wish it was 5 seniors, but if it was 5 seniors, maybe they'd be favored by a couple points. But, I mean, the 3 sophomores are doing a great job for them. The team, the coach is really excited about them, and this is a winnable game tonight. That's what I'm getting to. Nebraska, they're going the other direction, and 2 teams trending in opposite directions. And I think Wisconsin's going to go on and get another good road victory and be 7-3 in the Big Ten. And I do think they're a top 5 team in that conference. So they got an opportunity to prove it tonight and win a game that they should win. And even though they're an underdog by 3 points, I don't agree with it. So I'm going to take a stand in this game, and I'm going to tout Wisconsin, and let's see how it plays out.
Well, you're undefeated. I'm not screwing with you. That's for sure.
Well, I mean,
Anything else, Bobby?
Go ahead, Mike. No, I wanted to. Well, yes, not on games, but I wanted to go over. There's 2 things. If we have a moment, I don't have to talk long on this. I don't know how you guys are doing for time, but on this day, I came up with something in 1964. It was the most lopsided high school score ever recorded. It was in Louisiana. Obviously, the competition could not have been there, but the score was 211-29 in this high school game in Louisiana. I don't even know the teams, the schools. But I wanted to ask Steve if he ever remembers playing in a game, or what's the most lopsided score that he can remember playing in a high school game. Anything come to your mind, Steve, at all?
No. The only time I ever know where it would piss me off royally was we were playing. My high school coach was playing his brother, who was playing for another team, and I was making a run to get, for Mr. Basketball in Indiana my senior year, and we were killing this team, and I had 35 points at halftime. So, I thought if I could get in here and just rip off another quick 15 points and get 50 and then sit down and be done with it. We were beating them badly. Well, give me 6 minutes in the third quarter. I'll get myself 15 real quick points because I was scoring at will on them. And I'll get my 50, and then that's just something you put on your banner. You do your propaganda to get Mr. Basketball in Indiana.
Right.
And we came out to start of the second half, tip. They still did the center jump to start the second half, tip, pass it came right back to me, went up and dunked, and boom, I was out of the game. Never got back in.
Wow.
Jerk.
Yeah.
So I ended up with 37 points in the game, which was not my highest game I ever scored in. But we were killing them. But it was his brother's team. So that's kind of why that happened. But we were killing him.
Yeah,
so
I messed him up.
A little bit of memory of lopsided. There was personal. It was personal. I get it. And it was not really for anything other than some propaganda to put on a piece of paper when you start submitting your resume for why you should be Mr. Basketball, but never got there.
Yeah, because you should be Mr. Basketball for running up a lot of points against a bad, inferior team. You're right.
No, I agree, Mike. Yeah, no, you're exactly right. It was 99% bad, but it's a one-time shot to go do it. And I think I scored in the 40s a couple times in high school, but it never got anywhere where I had 35 at halftime where I could do it. So that would be my example of a team rank-up score where I was essentially running up my stats just for personal gain, which in the end, I look at it now, I'm like, I'm glad it happened that way. But at that point in time, it's like, just let me get to 50. I'll get to 50 in 5 minutes. I'll just score 15 quick points because I could score that easily on this team we were playing. And I said, I'll just get it and get out of the game.
Neat.
And we talked about it at halftime. We talked to the head coach about it at halftime. He actually said, I said, can we do it? And he goes, we'll but then, it just came out, like I said, hit the first bucket, 5 seconds into the second half, boom, I was out. Oh, well.
Yeah. Well, that's
great over against Mr. Basketball, who was a better choice anyway, so no problem.
Yeah, no problem, but, you still remember it, and that's a good story, and I'm glad that you brought that up. There's another on this day, a quick one, and I'm bringing this one up because I wanted to make a comment about this guy. In 1989, in today's date, on this day, the game-winning RBI stat was dropped. They did it for 9 years, as an official stat. And I remember it'd be at the bottom of the box score, and they would tell you the GWRBI. And I did not know, though, that in that 9 years that it was an official stat. Keith Hernandez was the all-time leader with those, with 129. And we come to present day. I mean, Keith Hernandez, what an outstanding player. But when I think of him now on the Mets broadcast with he and Ron Darling, I just love those guys. And we're so spoiled now. We get to watch every game on the MLB package and hear home and away broadcasts and stuff. And any chance I get during baseball season, and we'll talk more about this as things roll around, it's a baseball item, but any chance I get to listen to those two guys, it's must listen. It's required listening if you want to learn the game and just hear a great broadcast. But, he's doing a great job with his new gig, and not new, he's doing it a long time, but I mean, his career after playing gig, and him and Ron Darling do a great job. And it was kind of neat to see his name is the official all-time leader in game-winning RBIs.
The interesting thing is Kirk Gibson at one point in 1986 had 5 consecutive games with game-winning RBIs.
Mike, why did they do away with that stat?
Because they didn't want to use it anymore. I don't know, because to tell you the truth, I still thought they used it.
I did too. I didn't realize that stat had gone away. I thought that was a pretty relative stat, really. I mean, if I'm bucking for a good contract and I'm Keith Hernandez and I'm playing dude, I've got 129 games. I'm winning games for you.
Yeah,
right.
You could also have a 12-2 game where the game-winning RBI is the guy who knocked in run 3 in the second inning, possibly too. I think, which devalues a little bit.
No, and that's thought that it had to occur, I believe, from the 7th inning on.
What I believe in that. The game's already 15-1.
Well, then there is no game-winning RBI in a game like that. I believe there was criteria. I don't remember exactly, but there was criteria for the stat. So because you figure in 9 years you had 129.
I looked it up. And I looked it up.
In a year.
The reason I'm bringing this up is because I'm right.
Okay.
So it's a batter on a winning team brought his team ahead 3-2 from a 2-2 point at any point during the game, and the team later led 5-2. As a result of the other batters, the opposing team scored 2 more runs, making the final score 5-4. The batter on the team batting in the 5th run would be credited for the game-winning RBI. If it was a 3-2 final and you knocked in the 3rd run at any point during the game, you would be credited with the game-winning RBI.
At any point. Okay, yeah. Thanks for looking that up. Well, maybe they got rid of it because it's so confusing at the end of some of these games,
Yeah, because it was confusing. And I know it did matter somewhat, at least, because if you look at it, the rookie record was 14, which was held by Jose Canseco, Mark McGwire, and Wally Joyner, all 3 great baseball players. Of course, only one of those wasn't, enhanced through steroids. But when you look at that, and Keith Hernandez was a great first baseman. I think the American League record for one season was Mike Greenwell at 23. Hernandez also had the most in a single season at 24.
Wow. Good stuff, man. That's my era of the 80s, and, good stuff. And good story, Steve, from your memory in high school. And let's see if Wisconsin can get home tonight and for your fans and listeners. And I'm getting excited for this Super Bowl coming up. It's starting to build for me a little bit. I'm getting a lot of people talking about it and asking about it. So it's all good. I'm going to get off when we're done and listen to Sam Leitch. That's going to be interesting.
All right, guys.
Bobby, one last question. When are we going to start seeing the bets come in on the Rams? I mean, when does the book change on the Rams? It's going to be Wednesday now. I mean, we're getting down to the last 3 or 4 days.
I
think as much money as they can to balance things out. When are they going to? When does it change?
I think Mike said it by maybe by Saturday morning or Friday afternoon. So
it'll be that late.
Could be that late. Right now the South Point book director, he made a comment. He made a quote. He said, "There's no reason to get involved on the Rams yet. No reason yet, because just wait and see. When that number goes to 3, because they're going to need it to go to 3, and then boom, it's going to come in." So I just have a feeling that line's not going to end at 3, though. I think it's going to final line might be below 3, 2.5, and you might be lucky to get to 3. Who knows? I mean, it's just been weird. On a single game basis, you just never know what's going to happen in these things. So, but the big bets are still to come. So Friday, Saturday would be my answer to that.
All right,
there you
Bobby.
go.
Thanks again.
All right,
tomorrow, on Wednesday, will be Brian Ralph, our college basketball insider from Fanside and BustingBrackets.com. He'll be on for about 45 minutes to talk college basketball, and then, of course, Bobby will be back. And,
Mike, there's no way we can do a show in 45 minutes. When's the last time we did a show in 45 minutes?
He has a conference call at 1 o'clock, and I said that we're going to interview him. We're going to talk to him for 45 minutes, which we have done before, and then we'll bring Bobby on, and Bobby can talk even longer. So, Bobby, be prepared with a topic that will surprise us.
I will.
And make sure it's football,
All right,
because nobody cares about anything else. But, all right, no NASCAR crap. All right, that's it. We're done, Steve. Do you have anything else to say before I wrap the show up?
I'll think of something before you're done.
Okay. All right, guys, remember, you can hear all our shows on Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher. Wherever you find sports podcasts, you'll find The Grueling Truth. So, for Brian Ralph, Sam Weiss, Steve Risley, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.